guys. Welcome to the next edition of UKPW Insider. And my guest today gives me great pleasure to welcome one of UKPW's newest arrivals, the master mat technician, Mr. Locksmith, one step ahead, Harry Sefton. Harry, welcome to the show.
Hello, young man. Thank you for having me.
So, getting straight into it, have you always been a wrestling fan?
Not as long as most people. I first started watching wrestling when I was about 13, going on 14. And it actually came into my life through my friend who introduced me, because I'd been a fan of comic book superheroes. Like, I watched the Marvel Action Hour on Fox Kids, and I watched Toonami and all that kind of stuff. So for me, seeing people in spandex beating people up is, I guess, second nature. I get it. That's the sort of thing kids are attracted to, right? But then I always sort of knew that wrestling existed, because I remember one time, and here's a story. Do you remember Woolworths?
Yeah.
Ross? You look like you're about the same age as me, that you probably know what Woolworths is. A lot of people probably were born after it closed. But one of the things that I saw wrestling for the first time was a lunchbox in Woolworths that had Hollywood Hogan and Sting on it.
Brilliant.
And I didn't even know who they were. I just recognized it years later. It's like, oh yeah, that was who that guy with the glasses and the mustache and the guy with the face paint on. And then, of course, I saw Macho Man Randy Savage in Spider-Man 2. No, Spider-Man in 2002. But yeah, I first got introduced to wrestling. I got shown, I want to say it was the Raw after WrestleMania 22. And this was around the time when Triple H, Edge, and John Cena, they were all feuding over the WWE title.
Oh, right, yeah.
And Shawn Michaels was tagging up with God, supposedly, to take on Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon.
Yeah.
That was an interesting period, man. But that led to DX coming back, and that led to John Cena and Edge, which became like the first big feud for me. And DX and the McMahons, like I enjoyed it. I've still got a T-shirt from the tour I went to. The first Raw that I went to was at the Manchester Evening News Arena, and I've still got the DX shirt from that day. Just good memories of being introduced to something. Like, I was like a kid in the candy store. I loved it, man.
Was that the football jersey?
No, it was the DX reunion tour one with the spray paint and the can on it, and it had all the dates on the back. Funny enough, I remember the first wrestler who was out there. It was a dark match, and it was Doug Williams in the dark match. Of all people, the first wrestler who I see is Doug Williams, and I'm pretty sure he put up a post on his Instagram recently that he wrestled Carlito.
Never knew that. So
yeah, funny enough, they actually ended up on a show I was on together, and I don't think Carlito remembered he wrestled Doug Williams. So it is what it is.
But like, speaking of seeing like random cool things, one of the shows I went to, it was the dark match was William Regal against John Moxley.
Oh, where was that?
London. I think it was at the O2.
At the O2?
Yeah.
See, when I was in London, I went to Earl's Court to that April Raw right before Backlash, and I got to see that Shawn Michaels John Cena match that went an hour. Brilliant. I watched it back recently. I was able to pick myself out in the crowd.
Brilliant.
And I remember early in the night, I didn't even know who he was, but Robbie Brookside wrestled Umaga and got battered by him and Shane.
Yeah.
And then Shane McMahon, he called out Jose Mourinho, who was sitting in the front row with his kids.
I remember that.
Hilarious. It's all coming back to me now.
Was that Robbie Brookside?
It was Robbie Brookside. I just remember that. And then years later, I did a training session with him. This was when he was a talent scout before he moved out to America. I didn't ask him about it, though.
So, what was the match that actually made you want to become a wrestler?
Oh, I don't think it was any particular match, but I'd say that the John Cena Shawn Michaels match really cemented me as a full wrestling fan. I was just fully invested in that because I'd seen their match at WrestleMania and the Undertaker Batista match, and I just thought that's something special. Like, it's those things that that you'll always really remember. And for someone like me watching that, I just thought if I could ever do something like that, that'd be pretty cool.
So that kind of answers this next question. Who were your favourite wrestlers?
Well, definitely Shawn Michaels and Triple H and John Cena back in the day. I started watching TNA around that time, and I was a big Christian Cage fan. I love him. I love him still to this day. Like, that run as the instant classic. Like, he had some great matches in TNA that I think they cemented him, because I think WWE missed a trick with him. And AJ Styles, I discovered him. Great matches with the likes of Kurt Angle, who again couldn't do any wrong. Samoa Joe, of course. Yeah, I like Kaz as well. I was a big fan of Frankie Kazarian.
Yeah, I mean, TNA had a great.
They did,
roster,
yeah.
Had a great roster of talent, but they just didn't know what to do with them.
I think Hulk Hogan. You know what? I think that run from 07 to 09 for me, I just remember really, really enjoying it. And then all of a sudden, after Hulk Hogan came in, and then they got rid of the six-sided ring, and then they started bringing in all those other guys, I just thought it just wasn't the same anymore. No. But at least they got that great match with. They gave away a match with AJ and Kurt Angle on the night because they wanted to pop the rating, because they had Raw on the night with the return of Bret Hart.
Yeah.
Because they obviously wanted to get the edge, and I just thought that was a great match, instant classic.
So, what was it like training down at the Projo?
Well, I didn't initially start training at the Projo.
Oh, right. Oh, so where did you initially start?
Well, I should probably say when I actually started training. I started training. I'd initially gone to 2 training sessions before. One was at Dropkicks.
All right.
I went with my 2 friends who I backyard wrestled with, as we all did. Did some chain wrestling on the outside, got in the ring, hit a drop kick. Wasn't really enthralled by it. But then I went to a school in Swindon called 4FW, Forefront Wrestling. Yeah. Have you heard of them?
Yeah.
And I did a session there. But around the time, this was before I went to college, and I did not know how to drive. And my parents certainly weren't going to drive a 2-hour, round trip, hour there, hour back, every week. So I put off the idea of me being a wrestler. I did 2 years of college. I saved up my money. I got my car, passed my driving test, and I went to the 4FW school in Swindon, and that was August of 2011. So I trained there under David Sharp, who was the owner and the promoter, and Saint, and both those guys at the time had been in wrestling for about 10 years. And the training was really good, man. They gave me a great base in terms of learning how to feed, to bump, to roll, to get down the wrestling side of things, because they really did believe in conditioning and training to the highest degree. So you'd always be prepared for when you made your debut. And I started out as a referee. I refereed for a year. I got the chance to referee some matches with some cool people, like he brought in guys like Ultimo Dragon, and there was Kid Cash, Doug Williams, Shelton Benjamin. There was a match, I didn't ref it, but I was on a show where you had Zack Sabre Jr. and Finn Balor, who at the time was known as Prince Devitt. They were in a tag match. In the main event, they were tagging again. No, they were on opposite teams. But I actually picked him up from the airport, which is a funny story. I had to drive from Bristol Airport to Swindon in the snow with, at the time, the best junior heavyweight wrestler in the world, who's only 2 weeks before had an epic match in the Tokyo Dome. I want to say that was him and Ibushi and Low Ki.
Yeah.
So that would have been 2013. And then we did a seminar with him, and we nearly died because of the conditioning that he brought. I mean, you've seen the shape of him, you know what kind of conditioning he does.
Yeah.
And then it came down. Afterwards, I asked him, I'm making my debut at the end of the month. Have you got any advice for me? And he said, just relax, enjoy it. Don't rush too much. And I'm like, oh, cheers. It's all I needed, really. And I made my debut at the end of January of 2013.
So
under a different guise, not as Harry Sefton.
Okay.
Under a different guise. I was under I guess people call it under a lid or a hood or a mask. But yeah, I was the masked Neon Warrior Super Octane.
Ah, okay. Because I saw that name at, I think it was a Endeavour show.
Yeah, somebody stole the gear, stole the name.
Okay.
Yeah, I was training the Projo, and then this guy come up to me saying, "Mate, I've been thinking about this gimmick." So, you need a mask and the gear. Yeah, I've got it right here. You probably want to know where the Projo came in, because that was where you first saw me.
Yeah, it was. I know it was the Projo. Then it was Knuckle Lotus, isn't it?
So I started training at the Projo because I left 4FW in 2014 because I felt I've gone as far as I could. I wasn't getting on shows anymore. I wasn't getting booked regularly, and I had a bit of a falling out with the promoter over something that we buried the hatchet over. But I got quite close with Mark Andrews and Pete Dunne at the time. Like I say close, like I went to help out at their Bristol Attack show.
Yeah.
And I actually ended up doing a dark match on the show, which was fun. And then I bumped into Eddie Dennis. And Eddie Dennis at the time was he and Mark had just won the tag team titles, the tag team shields. Remember them?
Yeah.
I saw that and the Progress staff, and I just thought, that's so weird, but it's kind of cool because it was that was the idea, right? They wanted to be different, and I remember saying to Eddie, I'm thinking on training someone. I said, I'm off from teaching during the summer holidays, and I teach at the Projo in Camberwell in the very old unit. And he said to come on down, and was about maybe a week or two later, I came down, and that was the start of the second part of my journey, I suppose.
So, have you ever had any injuries in your time?
Injuries, like apart from the odd, knocks and bangs you get from wrestling, the one thing that really knocked me was I got a stinger in my neck on this side, and it happened back in, I want to say it was 2015 or 2016, and I think I took a German suplex in a ring and landed quite high on my neck. And then the morning after, I was just rocking out to some music, bobbing my head, and all of a sudden I just felt like a twang. And I just couldn't sleep properly. I had to sleep with a hot water bottle on my neck because it hurt so much. And I had to get in traction to pull my neck back up. But apart from that, I've been risk-free, mate. My neck is fine now. But I'd not be for a loop. I took a bit of time away from wrestling after that, just to heal up.
So you mentioned the funny story. Have you got any more that you can tell us about?
Which one was that?
We were talking about the funny stories.
I don't know which one. Which funny stories were these?
There's a story you mentioned just now. I think it was Zack Sabre Jr.
What happened was that I went to the airport with one of the guys at 4FW named Owen Phoenix. He doesn't wrestle anymore, but at the time he was getting a bit of buzz because he had gone to train in Japan at the Kaientai Dojo, and not long after that he went to train Michinoku Pro with a guy named Tiger Ali. They were like the top students. They were on opposite teams with Sabre and Devitt at the time. Like, I think Owen was sort of modelling himself after Devitt. No, I know he was definitely modelling himself. Like, they actually had a match. My first 4FW show I went to was an actual show where they had a match together. And in the main event, they had Dick Togo versus Tiger Ali. and it was part of Dick Togo's initial retirement.
Oh, okay.
He's a great guy, by the way, Dick Togo. We did a seminar with him, and he took a liking to me. He still follows me on Instagram, still likes my pictures from time to time. But I'm so glad he's in New Japan. I just like seeing him in the ring doing a senton, the odd senton. But yeah, I just remember Owen Pierce just wound me up the whole time because I had to get back to the venue as soon as possible, and it's snowing. Right, it's snowing. Like proper blizzarding down. I don't know if it's settled or not, but we're trying to get from Bristol Airport to Swindon. That's about an hour trip at the most. But I'm just doing the whole thing like this, white knuckle.
Brilliant.
Oh yeah, Finn here, cool as can be, man. I almost say cool as a cucumber. I almost sound like Undertaker. But no, he was the best.
But I've got a funny story actually before we move on to the next question.
Tell me.
This was down at Rev Pro.
All right.
In Sittingbourne, and it was. It
was the Withen Hall.
Yeah, and it was a fatal four-way match for. I think it was Mark Haskins' cruiserweight title. So it was El Ligero, I think. Mark Haskins, Noam Dar, and Prince Devitt at the time, and they were all fighting outside of the ring. And I think it was Mark Haskins whipped, did an Irish whip on the outside to Finn Balor, and I tried to move out of the way, but But in doing that, Prince Devitt actually fell over my chair.
Oh. He sold for you, took the bump.
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw him hobbling around afterwards, and I was like, I feel really bad now.
Did you go up to him?
Yeah.
And say, "Oh, I'm sorry, bud."
Yeah. Oh dear.
Was he cool about it?
Yeah.
Was he like, oh, it's just one of those things. It happens.
Yeah, no, he signed a T-shirt actually. So.
Oh, bless him. Yeah, good guy.
Yeah, definitely. So
one of my favourites to watch right now.
Yeah,
he's having a bit of a career resurgence in NXT. Like, I don't know if you saw those Kyle O'Reilly matches back to back, but just the good stuff right there.
Yeah, he's top notch. But so what's your first career memory?
First career memory, apart from my first match?
Yeah.
Like a career memory could be anything like a debut or a title win or something. I mean, I suppose, like, I guess a career memory for me would probably be like one that's kind of bittersweet, and that would be the Endeavour, where it was the first and last time I used the Better Man character.
Hayden
York, yes. That was such a spur of the moment name change, but the whole Better Man idea just came around in training because I just got to the point where I thought, you know what, I've got to do something to stand out, because at the time the Endeavour roster was stacked with a lot of, bizarre, weird, out there characters. I mean, who do you have top of the line? You've got Pastor William Eva, Chuck Mambo. I think Ali Armstrong had to retire, unfortunately, but he had been there. You had the Geezers, of course, who were just, killing it. David Francisco had just come along, Damon Moser, Earl Black Jr. And then, of course, on the girl side, you had Ginny and Elizabeth, of course, is now Laura DiMatteo, Pollyanna, Rhea O'Reilly when she came around. But yeah, it was all just about trying to stand out at the time. And myself and Dylan D'Angelo, who I think we thought about maybe teaming at some point, but then I don't know, we didn't really click in that sort of way. Like I've always got a lot of respect for Dylan. Like, he's doing very well outside of wrestling. Apparently he's now in a even better job than he was before, but he's making pretty good money and he's living the life. So that's the best we can hope for, right?
Yeah,
And to be honest, even though he didn't always hit anything. At least he tried stuff, even if he didn't always land it. Like he'd always go for one thing, and then it wouldn't kind of work, but he'd throw everything into it. But I remember doing that match, and at the time I was quite proud of it. But I still have it, and I can't really watch it back now because I'm in the ring and I'm trying so hard to be something that I'm not. Like I'm making tons of noise. This is something that David Francisco has said to himself whenever he watches himself back. Said, "Oh, I hate making all this noise in the ring," and I'm the same. Like unnecessarily shouting and mugging people off, and saying the word "better man" over and over again. Like, I can't watch that without just grimacing. And it was around that point where I just thought, I need to take a break from this. And I think I went home afterwards, and that's why there wasn't a follow-up. Like, if anyone was wondering what happened to the Better Man character, it just came and went, because I just realized that, I just kind of saw the bed there on the first night, in my opinion anyway. Like, I knew it wasn't good watching it back, even though some people liked it. I don't know how you feel, if you remember it.
Yeah, no, I think it had potential. Funnily enough.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That would have been the second step, potential.
But no. I mean, in your own head when something's not right, didn't you?
Yeah, and I think it was that point where I kind of had what I call the third stage in my career, where I decided I just need to get out of this bubble and go out and get booked and start wrestling, even if it's starting from the smaller shows. Because it was around that time I'd actually started doing some camp work. If we want to maybe get into that.
Yeah.
Because I did camp work for Steve Manelli, and I got a chance to just see a different side of wrestling. And through then, I started getting my confidence back. Yeah. And it's been a gradual journey. I had the fanboy phase for a while, where I brought out my inner nerd, I suppose. But it just didn't click, bro. It just didn't click for me. So, for lack of a better term, I just sort of went back to basics. And it's a real shame that this pandemic happened when it did, because I really felt like I was getting in my stride. And then next thing I know, I can't wrestle.
Always the way.
That's it.
But moving to UKPW, obviously you're one of the new faces. Although you did have a match at UKPW before.
I did. I did, yes. I had my spot in that gauntlet match.
Yeah.
I got a chance to work with the great Solomon Lamb. And I then ended up going one-on-one with Milky Bar Sid. So we got to show everyone a bit of classic British wrestling.
Milky Bar Sid. Love it.
Not my invention. I can't take credit for it.
So you could have got him over them without even trying.
All I know is that the fish out of water was probably it probably helped people take notice, because I think people need to remember that a lot of World of Sport wrestling, I think, is starting to make a bit of a comeback now. Because people like Finn Balor and people like Zack Sabre Jr., they're the people who sort of kept that base alive in one way or another. And like, I've had the chance to wrestle for a company, called Premier Promotions.
Okay.
Like, that's where I really started coming into my own, like working guys like Rishi Ghosh and working with Dave. I got a chance to work David Francisco on one of those shows, and I got a chance to wrestle Jordan Breaks twice on those shows. Like, if anyone's brought the best out of me, it's Jordan Breaks.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jordan Breaks.
I mean, he's as much a throwback as anyone else, and when I'm in the ring with him, it's just like a game of one-upsmanship. But unfortunately, I still am 2 for 1. Oh, in fact, no, I can't even say it. No, I'm 0 for 3. We had one match in the Knuckle Locks that everyone loved, right? We had a match everyone loved, and then we had 2 matches on Premier last year within the month of each other, and he got the best of me in both of them. But Well, that much though. Mine, that much. I've had time to prepare. I've studied my tape.
Was that a challenge?
Yeah, if everyone wants to reach out to Jordan, by all means.
So, right. Yeah, so, sorry, I'm losing track of my questions there. I know you've worked face and heel. Which do you prefer?
Well, they're two. I used to think there was two different ways of doing it, but I remember somebody once saying that the real difference of babyface and heel for someone who really gets their gimmick or their character or whatever is that you don't necessarily change, but your motivations do. So I can have as much fun doing either or now, because there was a time where I would be so uncomfortable being a babyface because I would be worried of falling into the classic babyface tropes that a lot of people who are inexperienced fall into, the shall-Is and the come-ons, that it don't fit them, Some people, they do. Like, I love it, the people who do a classic British wrestling style, that works for them. But then you see some other people, and you can tell that they're so nervous and they come out the curtain going, come on, do you know what I mean? I could never do that without just going, I shouldn't have done that. Or as a heel, you go, who's the man? These things that people who fall into. And if anyone does that, that's great. But for me, I can't do that stuff. Whereas now I can, but I just do it my own way. But if I had to choose one, being a heel, you just have a little bit more free reign. And especially if you're a wrestler who isn't necessarily one for bending the rules, because then you get surprised when you do, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. So, what could last actual question is, what can UKPW fans expect from you when the shows come back?
What can they expect? Well, they can expect a totally different style of wrestling as opposed to the other guys of my size, my weight class. They're going to see someone who wants to bring together all those cool styles of wrestling and just meld them into one. And I guess I don't want to say the word innovate, because I've never wanted to think of myself as anything like that, but just wrestle at different pace and catch people by surprise. Do you know what I mean? Catch them by surprise every time I'm in the ring. Do something that they won't expect and do something memorable. I think that's something that I think everyone should really want to do. And especially with a roster as stacked as this, like, I don't know if you want to mention some people I want to wrestle, but there's a lot of people on this roster I really want to get in the ring with who I haven't wrestled yet.
Yeah, no, feel free.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I mean, if he's on the roster, if he's, I don't know, I haven't seen him announced yet, but he was on the roster before. At the top of the list, it's Connor Mills.
That'd be a great match.
Oh, thank you. No, I mean, I think he may be pound for pound the best in the country. He has a different pace when he gets in the ring compared to a lot of other people who wrestle a similar style to him. He's just got that intensity, but it's something that I know I can match. And another person, I've wrestled him before on Manelli shows, but I think he'll be a whole different animal on UKPW shows, is Maverick Mayhew. Papa Mayhew, no longer just his dad. He's got to be, or is it Daddy Mayhew? I don't know. Rex Armstrong is another one.
Yeah, another new face that's just been announced.
I know, yeah. Another guy, I was actually in his first match, in a scramble match, but we've never had a singles match. Big Wavy, Roy Johnson, he's another one.
Brilliant. So we'll do a quick word association game now to finish off.
All right.
And these are all guys that you've worked with in the past, so we'll start off with Matt Walker.
Matt Walker. Calm intensity.
David Francisco.
Fantastic.
Kyle Ashmore.
Beard up.
I think you've wrestled this guy, Chris Ridgway.
One guy I would be happy to get in the ring with one day because I have never wrestled him. Hey, throw out an opponent if UKPW wants to bring him in. That'd be sick. I just got to avoid that elbow to the gut, man. That thing is killer.
And we'll finish off with Kelly Six.
Kelly Six. Innovative. Pushes the envelope. I had fun wrestling him. Tap out wrestling. Young Kieran. Corrupt.
Yeah, I saw that match and I was like, I've got to put it down on the list.
Cool.
So, the locksmith, Harry Sefton, thanks for joining me on UKPW Insider.
Well, thank you, Ross. And just for the record, as it turns out, I am not the locksmith because the Bohemian Warrior has apparently already claimed that name for herself. Evie Rose. So, who knows? Maybe, just maybe, with a little fine-tuning, you might see the return of the better man, Harry Sefton, to UKPW. But as for now, Harry Sefton, yes, is definitely looking forward to coming to UKPW in the future. And thank you very much for having me on this interview, mate.
Brilliant. Thanks for coming on.
You take care, man.
Yeah, and you. Bye.